before you scroll past this one, stick with me for the next 12 minutes, because by the end you're going to understand something about this sport that almost nobody on the big broadcasts is willing to say out loud. And trust me, the last 2 minutes of this video are the part everyone's going to be talking about tomorrow. Nashville was supposed to be Bubba Wallace's bounce-back weekend. Instead, the guy from New Zealand driving the number 88 turned it into Bubba's worst nightmare. And here's the twist that makes this whole story so much stranger. Bubba never even got the chance to race him wheel-to-wheel. Shane van Gisbergen rolled out of Nashville Superspeedway with his first ever top 5 finish on an oval, capping it off with a career-best 3-wide battle all the way to the checkered flag for P5. Meanwhile, across the property, Bubba Wallace sat in his wrecked number 23 with the steering locked up, no brakes left to speak of, slumped in the infield care center telling anyone who'd listen, "I'm tired, man." And here's the part nobody on the main broadcast wants to touch. The real source of Bubba's frustration has almost nothing to do with the actual crash. It's about what SVG is quietly doing to his entire season, lap after lap, week after week. We've got the radio chatter to prove it, and we've got the points math to back it up. So settle in, because this one goes deep. Let's set the table properly first. 4 races into the 2026 season, Bubba Wallace was sitting second in the Cup Series standings. Second, the guy looked like a legitimate championship threat, the kind of driver teams build a title run around. Fast forward to the Cracker Barrel 400 at Nashville on May 31st, and he's tumbled all the way down to 15th. 4 finishes of 22nd or worse across his last 5 races. That's not a rough patch. That's a free fall, and everybody in the garage knows it. Now flip over to the other side of the story. Shane van Gisbergen, the 3-time Supercars champion out of Auckland, the guy half the paddock wrote off as nothing more than a road course specialist who'd never figure out how to turn left competitively, he has completely flipped that script. He led laps early at Nashville, got shuffled toward the back on a pit strategy call that didn't go his way, and then carved his way back through the entire field on a concrete 1.3-mile oval where everybody insists passing is nearly impossible. And if you want the real technical reason why, watch his hands on the wheel. SVG is heel-toe downshifting on corner entry, on an oval of all places, something almost none of the Cup regulars ever bother doing, because it lets him load up the right front tire and rotate the car cleanly off the corner. He's bringing his V8 Supercar's muscle memory straight into a Cup car and using it to manage tire temperature in a completely different way than anyone else on that grid. While Bubba's fighting through arrow-shaped turbulence and dirty air behind other cars, SVG's car is breathing easy underneath him. That's the quiet advantage nobody's talking about, and we'll circle back to exactly how big a deal that is. So here's the rivalry that nobody is framing the right way. This was never really Bubba versus SVG out on the racetrack on Sunday. They barely even crossed paths. This is Bubba watching a guy who was supposedly hired purely for road courses go out and eat his lunch on Bubba's home turf. Ovals, the exact discipline Bubba has spent his entire career trying to master. And that right there is the breaking point, because every single weekend SVG figures out a brand new oval, Bubba's championship story shrinks just a little bit more. Let's actually walk through what happened at Nashville, because the wreck itself tells you everything you need to know about where Bubba's headspace really is right now. Lap 205, final stage of the race. Carson Hocevar drifts up the racetrack and taps Chris Buescher's number 17. Buescher's Ford breaks loose between turns 1 and 2, washes straight up the banking, and drives directly into Bubba's number 23 against the outside wall. William Byron has absolutely nowhere to go. He piles straight in from behind, hitting Bubba at the exact same moment the wall does. Bubba's car comes bouncing back down the racetrack with the steering locked and the brakes gone, clips Alex Bowman's right rear on the way, and sends the number 48 spinning as well. 3 lead lap cars wrecked in the span of a few seconds. None of it was Bubba's fault. Just brutally wrong place, wrong moment. And this is where his quote lands so differently once you actually sit with it for a second. It's been a long couple of weeks. Just tired. But I've become the bad guy when I let this carry over into the Mondays and Tuesdays, so somehow I've got to put on a face. That's not a driver simply venting about one bad crash. That's a guy who already knows exactly how the media cycle is going to treat him this week. He knows the radio shows and the reaction channels are going to clip his frustration and run with it for days. He's essentially pre-apologizing for emotions he hasn't even fully processed yet. But wait until you hear what was happening on the number 23's radio earlier in that same stage. Spotter chatter had Bubba running an aggressive, higher line trying to clear traffic, the exact opposite approach from what SVG was doing 2 lanes below him, patiently rolling around the bottom of the racetrack. 2 completely different philosophies, 2 completely different outcomes. SVG was hunting the very edge of the track limits with surgical precision, clipping the apex, riding right up against the white line, never once overcommitting. Bubba was throwing everything he had at every single restart. One approach walked away with a top 5 finish. The other one ended up sitting in the infield care center saying, "I'm tired." If you're an Aussie or a Kiwi fan following this takeover from the other side of the world, this channel is exactly where you need to be, because we're digging into the technical side of SVG's oval education that nobody else is really covering, the brake bias adjustments, the simulator hours put in back at Trackhouse, the heel-toe technique most fans have never even heard of. If that sounds like your kind of breakdown, stick around because it only gets more interesting from here. Here's the part that should genuinely worry the number 23 camp going forward. SVG isn't some flash-in-the-pan story anymore. Listen to what he said after Nashville. "We had a couple of bad months. It feels like it's really turned around. It's a momentum-based sport and confidence-based as well." Momentum. That single word, momentum, should rattle every driver currently chasing him in the standings. Because 2 of his own Trackhouse teammates, Connor Zilisch and Ross Chastain, both suffered catastrophic right front brake rotor failures that same day at Nashville. SVG openly admitted over the radio that he was sitting there wondering when his own brakes were going to let go too. They never did. His team made a small setup adjustment, and he nursed that car home to a 5th-place finish anyway. That's not luck. That's racecraft. That's a driver calmly managing a car that's actively trying to fail underneath him, on an oval he's barely had time to learn, against guys who've been turning left competitively since they were 6 years old. Tough break for Zilisch and Chastain, no doubt about it, but SVG kept a level head and brought the car home in one piece. So is this an actual rivalry, or am I reading too much into it? Fair question, and there's real history here. Go back to Watkins Glen last season, when Bubba publicly accused SVG of bending the track limits to his advantage, called it cheating, in so many words. SVG just shrugged it off and kept winning road courses anyway. Now he's coming for the ovals too. And Bubba, a guy who spent his whole career being told this is exactly where he belongs, who fought through the entire 2311 and NASCAR charter dispute just to hold on to his ride, is now watching a driver from Auckland accomplish it in barely his 2nd full season. That's the real breaking point here. It was never about one single corner at one single racetrack. It's about identity, and what happens when the thing you built your whole career around suddenly isn't yours alone anymore. And here's where the story gets even more interesting looking ahead. Michigan is up next, a 2-mile oval, fast, sweeping, heavily aero-dependent. SVG has already said it's a seriously quick racetrack and that he believes he can keep this momentum rolling right into it. If he runs a top 10 at Michigan, the entire conversation around him shifts permanently. He stops being written off as the road course specialist and starts being talked about as a legitimate playoff threat, full stop. Meanwhile, Bubba has to answer somehow. 2311 need points on the board. They need stage wins. They need their lead driver to stop simply surviving each race and start actually attacking it again. The pressure on that side of the garage is only building, and pressure has a habit of making even great drivers do careless things, blocking too aggressively, diving into a corner they shouldn't, rubbing a fender that didn't need rubbing. Rubbing is racing, sure, but right now every bit of contact costs Bubba far more than it costs SVG. SVG is playing this whole stretch with house money. Bubba is gambling with his entire season. My honest read on all of this, the real breaking point isn't going to be some blow-up on pit road or a shouting match in the garage. It's going to be quieter than that, and honestly a lot worse for Bubba. It's the moment he fully realizes that the guy he once dismissed as a novelty hire has actually become the benchmark, and that the gap between them is widening race after race, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. So tell me down in the comments, is Bubba right to be frustrated here, or is he simply getting outplayed by a better racing driver on the day? Don't sit on the fence on this one, pick a side, because we genuinely read through every single comment on these videos. And that's going to do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching this far and for being part of this channel. It means a lot, and it's exactly why we keep digging into stories like this one instead of just repeating what everyone else is already saying. Drive it like you stole it, and we'll see you at Michigan.